Oh, we're at your house. Oh yeah, you might Hey, Captain.
How's it going?
Captain. I made.
Have a seat, guys. All right. Okay. Today we're gonna do a little bit more practice with our timelines. I have a little less instruction for you and a little more moving around. So yesterday I got to talk a lot and you guys just had to sit there and listen to me. So now we're going to see how much you actually were paying attention, to see how well you can actually put these things in order and organize it. So we actually have a couple. We have a couple timelines here. Now there are random dates. These are just random, but they need to go on the timeline. They need to go on the timeline in order, so that they are properly placed to look at the timeline. Now, like I said, these dates don't have any real significant meaning, at least none that I'm aware of. So you can sort of think of them as numbers on a number line. But we have to put them in the correct order. So we need to be paying attention to a couple things. What do we want to be paying attention to? What's the number one thing we want to be paying attention to on our timeline when we start organizing these dates?
Like the BC and
AD. Yeah. What's the other set of abbreviations that we can use besides BC and AD? Liv. Correct. BCE and CE. Can anybody tell me what BCE stands for? Anijah. Before the Common Era. All right. Well, that's the hard one. The easy one would then be, what does CE stand for? Kendall? Common Era. Correct. All right. What does BC stand for? BC. Yes. Before Christ. All right, what does AD stand for? What does AD stand for? Yes. It is not after death. Most people think it's after death, but it does not stand for after death. We talked about it yesterday. Vera?
A Latin phrase that means attack our Lord.
Very close. It's a Latin phrase that means in the year of our Lord. Yes. Anno Domini. Anno Domini. Think of anno as an anniversary, meaning a year. Anno Domini, the year of our Lord. Okay, so we need to move these things around. We've got what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got 8. I think we have at least 3 different slides of these, so we should have a chance for just about everybody to go up as long as they would like. So, first volunteer, Jackson first hand that was up. So, Jackson, you want to move the first one. Remember, now, the first one's actually going to be kind of hard because you have to look at the timeline, you have to look at all of the other dates that are there and put it in the right spot.
Why do I have to go first?
Wait, above or under?
Under. Put it under so that, like, the line is pointing right to it. Just like that. Okay? The 100 BC. Number 2, learn. Number 2.
Right.
400 BC. Pretty sure we just go around the room. Zach, go ahead and go. Let's just go around. Let's just go around the room. Get everybody a chance to get there. I've got like 3 different sides. I think we've got enough. Speak. No, it's you. Good. 250 AD. All right. Next up. What? 300 BC. All right. Good call. Way to pay attention, Courtney. You're up.
No, it's right. Because there's only one of these two.
100 AD.
With the 250.
280, alright. That's all like magic. Going very easy.
Oh my gosh, no, this was the hardest one. But what is that?
What is this?
See, the hardest one, I told you that one.
410, alright. Do we agree with everything that's on the timeline? Are you sure?
Zero isn't right. 4 years.
Is there something on our timeline that's not right?
Yeah.
Yeah, what? The 0 is actually not correct. Do we have a 0 in the timeline?
No.
No, there's 2 year ones, right? Actually, Mr. Johnson and I had a conversation about this earlier. And it's understandably difficult because Mr. Johnson comes from a very heavy math background. He's a big math guy. And so, for him, he was looking at it, and he's like, in a timeline, you have to have a 0. So he was thinking, what is year 0? Why are there 2 1s right next to each other and there's no 0? Well, it's because if you think about it this way, let's say, let's see how we can fix. TJ, what year were you born? 2000. Okay, that's actually really easy. So let's say that for some strange reason, we don't know why, TJ becomes some sort of massive rock genius and a rock god, if you will, the new Robert Plant. And all of a sudden they decide, in the future, that they no longer are going to base everything off of when Jesus was born. They're going to redo all the calendars and base it off of when TJ was born because his music is so influential, right? So TJ's rock and roll has become the newest thing in the entire world. Everybody loves it. So they're basing everything off of TJ's rock and roll, right? I'm actually stealing this from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, but that's totally different. So everything is now being changed. So now they're basing the timeline off of TJ, right? Well, the year that TJ was born, 2000 would be year number 1. That's his first year, right? That's your first year in existence, right? You're not quite a year old. You're working your way up to being a year old. Basically what it means, when you turn a year old, it means you've completed 1 year of your life, right? So he's in his first year. So 2000 would be his first year. The year before that isn't a 0 year. It doesn't exist. It's the year before TJ. 1 year before TJ. So there's no 0 in a timeline. There's just 2 1s right next to each other. All right? So our 0 is incorrect. No, I didn't make this timeline. There actually was a nice little picture up there before, and I took it out because I thought it was silly and distracting. But I took it out. But so there's no 0 in a timeline normally. So I understand that's a little bit, if that might be a little bit confusing. But you guys spotted it right away, so I think we should be fine. Okay, moving on to our next timeline. We have a few more to move around. Like I said, now these kind of stretch all over the place, so you gotta kind of be careful as to how they fit in. So where were we at? All right, come on up. Anthony, you're next. Yeah, no, we are. 3000 BC. All right, Anthony, go ahead and go grab it.
The more you know.
Good. Yeah, let's just keep going around the circle. We may not make it through. But that's okay. We will, I'll remember, I'll have you guys. 2080, alright, we are moving right along. I have 3 slides, yes, but I don't have as many on the 3rd slide as I do on this one.
Oh my goodness. The screen is
I don't know.
moving.
All right, last one. All right. Now, I want everybody to look at this timeline. Are we certain about the dates being in the right order? Okay, except for the 0, ignore the 0. It's just a standard part of this line. Okay, by show of hands, how many people say this timeline is exactly right in order?
I like it.
Okay, every hand should be up. It's right. It's exactly right in order. Here's the next question that I have for you. Is this a good timeline?
No.
No, why is it not a good timeline, Courtney?
Because we have 10 and then we jump right to 150 and we have 40 and we're 40, so it's hard to make like that accurate.
Okay, so we have a lot of different dates in here. Now you're going to see timelines that might go from 3000 BC all the way up to 2000 AD. So is our time range too large?
No, just jump.
No. What is it?
It's just too, like, their spacing is oddly placed. It's not the same spacing that it should be.
Okay, the spacing's weird, right? Because if this was actually 3000 BC, shouldn't this, like, the 40 be kind of real, like a lot closer to 0? And then the 350 be not too far? Like 650, these would be almost like all on top of each other, right? If that's 3000, wouldn't these all be kind of like right on top of each other? So our markers are poorly spaced, right? The years are not too bad. The years are not too bad because you could have a timeline where you have this type of range from 3000 BC to 2000 AD, and these are the times when those events happen. So the times aren't going to be, like, that's not the problem. It's just the markers that we put on our timeline are poorly spaced, right? Because if we go by these markers, doesn't it look like 3000 is the same distance away from 650 that 650 is from 350?
Yeah.
It kind of looks like they're the same distance. Are they the same?
No.
No. This one's about this is 300 years apart, and this is over 2,000 years apart. So you want to make sure when you're creating your timelines that when you put your markers in, that you accurately notate where they fall. All right? You want to make sure that they are evenly and accurately spaced. Okay? Any questions about that? All right, this is our last timeline. Now this one we're going to do a little bit differently because I don't have as many. So we have some pictures.
That's hard.
I'm going to explain to you what the pictures are, and then I'm going to have you figure out where roughly they go on the timeline. Now, with this timeline, I want you to ignore the little dashes, all right? I tried to delete them off of the timeline, and I just couldn't do it. Every time I tried to, it just like stretched them, pulled them in weird ways, and it wouldn't delete them. So just ignore the little dashes. But I'm going to explain to you what each one of them are, and about when they took place. Okay? So you have Osiris. I think it's Osiris. It's Osiris, the Egyptian god of the dead. Right? Osiris is a representation of the old Egyptian kingdom. Does anybody remember from our timeline when the old Egyptian kingdom took place? The old kingdom? Does anybody remember? No? We're going to say for our purposes today, right around roughly 6,000. We're going to say 6,000 BC. Okay, roughly 6,000 BC. The next one right underneath it is a Mayan archway. And the Mayan people ruled parts of South America around 500 AD. The next one is Julius Augustus Caesar. He's going to represent the Roman Republic or the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire came in. Let's just put it. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to finish explaining what each one of those people are, and then I want you guys to figure out where you think they go in the timeline. So I'm going to test your knowledge of history. Alright, so we have Julius Augustus Caesar. That's this guy. So we have ancient Egypt, Mayan ruin, Julius Augustus Caesar, Roman Empire, ancient Rome, a Viking warrior, right? Viking warrior, a Greek citizen from ancient Greece, ancient Greek citizen, and finally a World War I helmet, a British World War I helmet. Okay? What I want you to do really quickly is in your little clusters, talk about who you're like sitting next to, your little groups of three, whatever. Talk about trying to figure out where they go in order. Okay? About 5 minutes. Alright, the first group that thinks that they have a complete, perfect idea of the timeline, go and put it up there. If you've got it perfectly, hurry up.
You right there. I'm
Alright, Jack's first.
Yeah.
Jack, go quick. No, do it quickly.
Okay. Should have ran.
I was like, oh, I can walk.
Wait, so is this the
No, that's wrong.
Roman?
So you get out of town.
Wait.
Just go, man.
Yeah, you weren't ready.
Alright, go sit down. Jack, go.
What?
Tyler can go.
I forgot who they were.
Okay, I don't think you know me.
Maybe I do, maybe I don't.
Incorrect. Enrique, try and fix it.
I'm gonna leave this.
Jack, sit down.
Leave that. I'm gonna take off.
Jack, sit down.
Out. Wait, what is this called again? Osiris. And what is this called? Caesar.
That's
Caesar.
Caesar, that's Rome. One's Egypt, one's Rome.
That's Egypt.
That's Egypt?
Yeah.
That's wrong. That's
Jack, go sit down.
Jack, you
Nice
had your
shot.
chance.
There's 3 people in line.
What is this called?
It's the Mayan.
That's Mayans. Very quickly, go.
Oh, I know what that is.
Come on, you made
You're gonna
me
lose
sit
your
down.
Hurry up, Enrique.
Enrique, hurry up. I want to
Is that?
Incorrect. Go sit down. Now, Jack, go sit down.
go. You already had
Rich, go
one.
sit down.
Hey, dude.
You can come in the back of the line.
Jumbo juice. Jumbo juice.
I was up here before Kendall. So? You already went. Brendan.
No, don't do that.
Kendall. You did it. Brendan. Kendall. You already went.
You're the first one to go up.
I didn't get to do anything. So hey, Brendan.
Close, but incorrect.
Good try.
Oh man, that was close, man.
No. A long time ago.
No.
What?
Jumbo juice.
Incorrect.
The school officially school.
Incorrect.
I'm gonna hop back in line.
What?
You guys don't know. What?
What is going on?
He
Incorrect.
He's Getsu.
I knew the Norse Raiders were before the Egyptians, and I didn't know if Greece was before Egyptians. It's a Norse Raider.
It's a citizen.
No, the Vikings. That's a Norse Raider.
Incorrect.
Did he have that?
I can pass the bronze sword and the shield. That's correct.
Why is it getting right?
Incorrect.
I know. Two.
Try like that for you.
Don't be a spoiler. Yes, you are. He's been a spoiler.
I'm just helping.
Correct.
I'm not done.
Oh.
Correct. Well,
I'm not.
I'm
done. I'm not done.
Close.
What in the world is going on?
Incorrect.
switch out the two people. Switch out the two people. You know, go up there. But it's giving this.
I don't cry.
Party pooper.
Let's go, Key! You just switch the two people. We've done that.
Close, but incorrect.
Yes, it's two people you can switch. At the back of it. Switch. Yeah.
No helping. It's Maverick.
Incorrect.
I wasn't done yet.
Incorrect.
I wasn't done yet.
I the umbrella.
I remember how I got you.
Alright. First of all,
I know it.
incorrect. But before we have anybody else move anything
I
else
was the
forward,
closest. I know which one is the last one.
before anything else is moved on the board, I want you, there's one thing that people, it seems, are not necessarily paying attention to. When you put something either really close to or overlapping that 0 point, you're saying that it happened in both AD and BC. So if something only happened in AD or in BC, you need to make sure that it's past the 0 point, okay? Also, make sure they do not have to be on those markers. They don't have to be on those lines, okay? Once again, it's the same thing with the last one. I couldn't delete the lines, so ignore them, all right? Who is up next? Go ahead.
Come on, man, you can do it.
But ancient Greece is not. Incorrect. Alright, if you're in line right now, we're finishing the line that's up right now, and then that's it. So keep near the end of the line, toward the end, the last one to go. Get there. If we get done before that, we'll get done before that.
Is that it?
Quickly. Incorrect.
You stop.
Quiet.
I wasn't in front of him. No, and now he's gonna get it because he copied it.
Incorrect.
They were in front of you. Get back behind you. It's fine. I'll just let us watching the line. You were behind us in front of you. He's cutting.
Incorrect.
No, it's not.
What's up?
No, we've already done that. I got it right. Man. I'm out, man.
Correct. Finally, we have it correct.
I was gonna do that.
The two biggest mistakes that kept happening. Yes, because the Roman Empire started before and after.
We talked about that.
The Roman Empire started before the birth of Christ and ended in about 500 AD. The zero mark you have to pay attention to. The zero mark you have to pay attention to. Because there is no zero, yes, but on this timeline we have a zero instead of two ones. So this, the midpoint you have to pay attention to. So Julius Caesar, the representation of Rome, the Roman Empire, needed to be in the middle. Because it was going on before and after. Alright? It lasted about another 500 years after we started counting. So the Roman government, the Mayan Empire didn't start until about 500 AD. And went for a period of time afterwards. The Vikings were much, much later. If we were to do this timeline with proper spacing, this Viking guy should be way down here. Much further away from the Mayans. But not nearly as close to World War II. There should be or World War I. There should be a nice big gap between the Vikings and World War I, because there's probably about a good 600-year gap between the two of them. The Greeks came before the Romans. The Greeks came before the Romans. The Egyptians came first. The Greeks came later, and then the Romans. Okay? Does anybody have any questions about our timeline or how to set up a timeline? How to do a timeline? All right. We have about what, 15 minutes left? Yeah. About 13 minutes left. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pass out your homework to you. You guys have time to work on it, so it shouldn't be homework. But I'm going to put it on. I'm going to put it on the board. We talked about this yesterday. I told you yesterday you were going to have homework.
Wednesday is not when you get homework. Monday is when you get homework. Monday and Thursday. I was saying
Yeah, I think somebody had a right order. They were in the right order. It's not in the right spot.
Today's hump day.
Okay, whoa. What? All right, ladies and gentlemen. My passing out homework to you is not a chance for you guys to just have a conversation. As long as it wasn't here, I could have been giving you directions on the homework and you would never have known. So this is what you need to do. Obviously you need to put your name on it. I would prefer that you put your name in the upper right hand corner because it's easier for me to find that way. You have a timeline here. The directions say. I want to get them all packed on.
Mr. Bidner, I didn't get one.
Alright, the directions say, for part 1, follow directions for each step carefully. For part 2, be sure to answer all questions for each question. Answer all parts for each question. So part 1, it says, label the two sides BCE and CE. So you have to properly label them. Place the letters of the following events on the timeline. So you're just writing the letters. You don't have to write the entire phrase. Alright? Part 2, why are there two number ones on this timeline? We've talked about it. So you need to answer that on this in the space provided or on the back if you feel free. Number 2, how many years passed between inventing the vaporizing gun and using it on the Roman army? So you need to do a little math. Number 3, which event or date is the earliest on the timeline? Which one is the most recent? Okay? So you need to answer all of those questions. It should not take you very long. Anybody want to help Courtney out with what CE means? Anijah. Common era. Yes.
When did you invent the vaporizing?
Bacon.
We did it. So I just choose whatever year I want.
Well, there's a year listed there, isn't there?
Yeah, there is.
Oh, it says under 2.
Working people. We finished early. I have one last thing to show.
Is it another joke?
No, we need another joke though.
No.
We're gonna get back to work.
Okay.
joking.
Get back to work.
Now that's a funny joke, right?
Get to work.
Hello, and why there's nothing BC between 200
You put it just like you
No, there doesn't have to be. But this is where you learn BC versus Yes.
The which event slash dates is right here, the event object. This one happened earlier. It didn't happen earlier.
Can you turn it in today, or is it?
No, hold on to it, turn it in tomorrow. Refer direction number 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stop talking or giggling.
your notes from what you were writing down yesterday.
Wait. I read Lauren and I looked at the wrong one. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, really quickly. Tomorrow we're going to start like a little bit of a project. We're actually going to work on, we're going to go back to talking about being an archaeologist. So we're going to step away from timelines just a little bit. Even though, I did want to show you guys this, there are some really kind of cool timeline things out there that you can do with timelines. This is just sort of a little kind of activity type thing on timelines. So it gives you can come up and you can check, like, it's basically a timeline of the Olympics, so you can see how the Olympics progressed. Does everybody know where the Olympics actually started?
London.
What?
London.
Greece. Ancient Greece is where the first Olympic Games were originally started. Does anybody know where the term marathon comes from?
London.
Where? Yes, it comes from Greece. Thank you. But more specifically, where do we get the term? Okay. There was a town there was a city in Greece called Marathon, and there was an invading army coming into Greece. Somebody had to run the marathon to let the people know, and the distance they had to run, 26.2 miles.
That's a marathon.
That's why we are on a marathon. Goodbye, guys. Have a wonderful day.
Didn't they have horses like that?
No, well, maybe. Toodaloo. TTFN. Ta-ta for now.
Oh yeah, I told Miss Niels to buy her something like hospital bye-bye.
Hostile bye-bye? What'd she say?
Like, ha ha ha. That's it. And then she left. That was at the end of the day. So I have an idea.
All right. Oh, day! Yes, yes, it is. Oh, I remember. Oh, day!
That's why I wore long sleeves.
Oh my god, it's so warm in here.
I'm so proud of myself.
This shot hat class is freezing.
Yeah, it's like Angela's cup.
I was shivering the whole class. It was so cold.
Oh, this is no good. No good, no good.
No.
Are you taking it?
You're breaking.
I was holding it. It's like
She pushed me. Really pushed me.
This is really warm.
Actually, after
After
Hi. Go sit down.
Yeah.
All right. We're gonna do a little bit more work with timelines today. Today, though, just to keep it a little bit different, a little bit fresh, so that you guys are not bored just sitting in one place all the time. I have about 4 timelines, and I think I have enough dates to get most everybody up there. And then I have, I have those, and we're going to go through those in just a second. And then after that, E-school being creepy.
E-school or E-school?
E-school, it's how I take attendance.
That's what
Everything about you
That's very.
is knocking me. E-school does.
So we have a couple different timelines today. And this is what we're going to do. I'm going to pull them up on the smart board. There's a timeline. There's a series of dates that are all kind of jumbled about. and we're gonna go around the room and give you guys a chance to come up and move one of the dates. All right? If for some reason you don't want to go up and move one of the dates, you don't have to. Just tell me you don't want to, and we'll move on to the next person. But if you are ready to go up, we'll go up. We'll try and get as many people up as we can. And then after that, I have a timeline to show you some of the cool things that you can do with timelines to make them a little bit more interesting, other than just a line on paper with a bunch of little dashes. And then I will give you your homework. So that's what we're going to do today. So let's go ahead. We'll go ahead and get started. Now, so this is our first timeline. We have our little early dash here to tell us to separate the one side from the other. What do we call when we're looking at a timeline? Turn it off earlier. I don't have a big 6x. On this timeline, what do we call this side of the timeline? What do we call this side of the timeline? AD is one term we can use for this side of the timeline. What's another term we can use for this side of the timeline?
Common era.
Common era. Okay. This side of the timeline. What is this side of the timeline? BC. Or what's the other term that we can use? Brooke. Before Common Era, or BCE, correct? Okay. Here's this. So we talked about CE, which is Common Era, and BCE, which is before Common Era. What does BC mean? Regular BC. What does BC mean? Before Christ. What does AD stand for? Colin. In the year of our Lord. It comes from a Latin phrase, Anno Domini. Anno Domini. So you can think about anno like anniversary, like it comes from the same Latin root, meaning a year. So you can think of like the year of Dominos. Anno Domini, the year of our Lord. The year of Dominos. Anno Domini. Right? So it's the year of our Lord. Good job. Alright, so this is what we're going to do. I think last class I started on that side of the room, so this class I'm going to start on this side of the room. We're just going to go around the room. And I know it's a different class, but it's fun. Makes things different for me. Makes me have to pay attention. So what we're going to do is, what you need to do is you need to come up and you need to place these certain dates on the timeline. Make sure, what's the one thing that we need to make sure we're paying attention to when we place them on the timeline? Big thing. BC and AD, correct. We need to make sure that we're paying attention to that. So Tori, go up and grab our first one.
Yeah, confusing.
They're jumbled all over the place. Their dates jumbled all over the place. They go in a specific spot on the timeline. Where do they go on the timeline? Okay. We've got our earliest point on the timeline, 400 BC. Good job. We're just gonna go around. So just keep coming. No drum roll. Too much pressure, because I can't do a drum roll. 100 BC. Good job.
No, where you're supposed to go. We just kind
Wait.
All right.
Almost.
Okay. Before we move on to the next timeline, does everybody agree with the dates as they are placed on this line? Yes, except for our one wacko dude. Sorry, my OCD can't handle it. I can't, it's out of place. I can't handle it. Like, I had to go back and read an email real quick to not just run up here and do it.
It was the
So-
first AD though. The others could have followed.
I could have, yes. Uniformity is key. I like uniformity. Okay, but everybody agrees with where we have them placed, correct? If you agree with where they are placed, raise your hand. Okay. Are there any problems with this timeline? Do we see anything really wrong with it? No, it's a pretty good timeline. It's a pretty good timeline. Okay? From 400 BC to 410 AD. It's a pretty good timeline. Pretty well even spaced. All right. Pretty good timeline. I like it. Okay, continuing on, let's move on to our next timeline. The next timeline.
There's a zero on it.
No, that's a team.
Oh.
It's like a whole. There's nothing of
This city.
Oh, I can see.
This is the same.
No, it's different. I promise. It's different. It's different. I promise.
He's trying to log into.
Oh, is this one? Is this not copyright?
No.
All of them. Oh, no, but there is something different. Still do it. There is something different about it that we need to talk about. Still do it. Just do it. Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. Nike.
Yeah, it's a
Let's
Nike
do it.
commercial.
Reebok. I mean, Nike. Wait, what?
Nike.
It's like.
You are not endorsed by Nike at this point?
No, not yet. I'm trying. He's trying. Actually, if I was going to endorsed by any shoe company, it would be Doc Martens.
What, Nike? More than just shoes.
Sweater vest? Wait. I do.
This is awesome.
Three more.
A sweater.
I swear.
What?
She's like,
She thinks I'm BC.
Huh? What just happened?
Go ahead.
What just happened?
All right. Last one. All right. Okay. So what's wrong with our timeline? What's wrong with our timeline? No, it's fine. What's wrong with our timeline? Is there anything? Well, let's ask this question before we ask what's wrong. Is there anything wrong with the timeline? Is there anything wrong with that? How many people say yes? There is something wrong with this timeline. 1, 2, 3. 3, 4, maybe 4, I think.
No.
All right.
What's wrong with it?
Those of you, those brave 4 who raised your hand, now everybody else is starting to raise their hand, are correct. There is something wrong with this timeline.
Because there's a zero.
It's because there's a 0.
Are you kidding me? I pointed that out at the beginning.
It's because there's a 0. In a regular timeline, in the timelines that we looked at yesterday, was there a 0 in our timelines we looked at yesterday? No. And there shouldn't be one. There should be year 1, the first year, and there should be the year before that. There's no 0 year. There's no 0 year. Think about it this way. I'm gonna pick on somebody. I gotta pick on.
Hey.
me.
I'm gonna
Pick on me.
pick on
Pick on me.
Marley. What year were you born, Marley? 2000. All right, that's perfect. That's excellent. Okay, so let's say this is what we're gonna do.
Zero.
Let's say that starting in the near future, Marley decides to form a band with one of her really close friends, and they become such an epic band, such a epic rock band that the whole world starts listening to their music, and they start changing the way that they do things. And wars end because people don't want to fight each other. They just want to listen to Marley's rock music. They don't want to fight, right? The world ends up in peace, and people decide that this is such a momentous thing that they are now peaceful. They've made massive scientific breakthroughs because they're all getting along. We've gone to space. We've discovered the Vulcans, and we now live long and prosper. And she has created, through her music, a completely different world, right? The whole world has changed because of Marley's music. So the historians get together, and they decide that they're going to change the calendar to no longer be based on when Jesus was born, but based on when Marley was born. So now the entire thing is going to be based on starting at 2000, when Miss Marley was born, right? If you start a calendar when someone is born, the year that they are born is their first year of existence, right? So, of Marley and Friends. I don't know. It would have been Marley and Me, but I think that's the name of the book about it.
It's also Marley.
But it's Marley and Friends. So they're looking at the year that Marley was born, 2000. So when you reach your first birthday, what that basically means is you have completed 1 year of being alive. You have completed 1 year of existence. Before that, it's not that there wasn't any time at all. There was no zero time. There was time. There was a year before that. So you have your first year, and then there's the first year you weren't there. Okay? So in any accurate timeline, you should have a year 1 AD and a year 1 BC, but there should never be a 0. Okay? In the next, I think at least 2 timelines that we have, you're going to notice that I believe that there is no 0 in the next 2, but there will only be like 1 dash. And that's just because those 2 1s are so close together, I only used 1 dash. Okay? Does anybody have any questions about whether or not there should be a 0 or why there's not a 0? Okay. A 0 means, everybody knows, a 0 means nothing. So if you have a 0 on a number line, it means that there is nothing there. You don't have that in time. There's no period where there is no time. So you have to mark it by a numerical number. So you have 1 year, the first year it happened, and the year before that. There's no period in there where there was no time. All right? And Marley, thank you for changing the world with your rock music. If you didn't know, I stole that whole scenario from okay, so now we have some different numbers. And notice this time we don't have a 0, right? So we have some different numbers. So where did we leave off? Autumn and then Preston. Autumn grab one, and then Preston, you grab the next one. Okay. They're feeling confident.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
I don't want to know.
2000.
Emily, you don't want to go? All right. Go ahead.
Go.
Birthday's on me.
I don't have a problem with it as long as it stays all this well, yes
Read another email.
what do you think I'm doing right now?
Brianna, we'll move over to you. You're going next.
Oh, can I go after?
Yeah.
I just like it to last.
I'm gonna ruin it. When it goes my turn, I'm gonna
Yeah.
ruin it.
There's a lot of pressure.
Stinky.
There's a lot of pressure.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
That is buggy.
Here we go. So let's take a look at our timeline. I guess apparently when I did this one, I fell in love with the number 7. Okay. So let's take a look at our timeline. Does everybody agree with where everything's placed? Yeah. I mean, everybody should agree. They are properly placed. Is this a good timeline?
Yes.
Wait. No.
Yes.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yes.
Hold on. If you say yes, tell me what's good. Why is it good? What's good about it? Julian, what's good about it?
It doesn't have 0.
It doesn't have a 0, so that is one good feature, right? We have one accurate thing about our timeline. It has a good feature. It doesn't have a 0. Yeah. They're in order. That's also good. So that's tip number 2 on a good timeline. Okay, the ADs and the BCs are all in the right spots, right? We don't have anything confusing where like we have like, say this one says AD and this one says CE. You know, they mean the same thing, but you always want to stay consistent, right? Is there anything that's difficult about this timeline? Or not correct? Yeah. It's not very well spaced, is it?
No.
Now, is it okay to have a timeline that goes from 3 million BC all the way to 2010 AD? Is that okay? Yeah, that's fine. Because what if you had a timeline that talked about that went all the way back to prehistoric times when dinosaurs first ran through Illinois, and you were talking about the history of Illinois, or the area that we know as Illinois, dinosaurs, all the way up to, let's say, present age. So let's say this said 2013 on it. Could you have that timeline? Could you make a timeline that did that? Yes. You can make a timeline over any space of time that you want. So the range is actually fine. And the dates that fall on here are okay. Because of the fact that you could have events that happen at any date. So the dates that are on here are okay. The problem with it exactly is the spacing between. Because doesn't this look like the same amount of space right here as this space? This is 250 years difference. This is like over 2 million years difference. If we wanted to space these things more accurately, how would we have to move them to make it look more accurate? Okay, so we'd have to move these pretty close together, and then we'd have to move this 3 million like way out here, right? So pretty far away. In fact, if we wanted to keep 3 million on the edge of just to the end of the timeline, we'd have to even move the 82 a little bit closer, and then the 3, and then the 650, just to show the vast amount of difference between the two of them, right? So when you're creating a timeline, you want to make sure that your numbers are evenly spaced. If you have huge number differences, you want to make sure that your spaces between those numbers adequately and accurately displays the actual time, okay, the actual amount of time. All right. One last thing. One more thing. No, it's the one. I had another one in my other class, and I went that so you guys can do that one, and it so I feel really bad about it. So this is our Olympic timeline. It's kind of a cool one. I just wanted to show this one to you really quickly before I give, because we're done at, are we done at 4?
We're done at the 8.
At 40, okay. We have time to talk about this really quickly, and you'll have time to do your homework. So that'll be good. What we have here is we have a timeline of the Olympic Games. Does everybody know where the Olympic Games originated?
No.
Greece. Ancient Greece. The Olympic Games started in 776 BCE. This photo shows the original site of the Olympic Games in ancient Greece. Right? So this is a photograph of the original Olympic Games.
Started in 776 BCE to honor Zeus, the king of the ancient Greek gods. There was only one event, a foot race called a one-stage, approximately 630 feet or 192 meters long. A cook named Coroebus won the race, and the Olympics grew from there.
So think about that. The Olympics started as just one race. There's one race. 640 some odd feet? Like, that's it. That was the race. Could you imagine? How many people watch the Olympics? How many days does the Olympics go on?
Like 13 weeks.
How many?
2 weeks.
At least 2 weeks. And at least 3 days of that is all like the opening game celebration stuff, right? That stuff goes on for forever, right? And they spend at least a couple of years prepping for it. Could you imagine doing all of those opening ceremony things for one race? It's won by a cook. So 680 BCE is our next event.
At this point in the timeline, the Olympic Games consisted of foot races, wrestling and boxing matches, pentathlons, and the most popular of the events, the four-horse chariot races. The chariot races took place in a building called the Hippodrome.
See? So now we went from 776 BCE to 680 BCE. So we're just less than 100 years, and we've added a bunch of different games, right? We have wrestling, we have boxing, we have chariot racing, we have regular racing, and what else?
And running.
And running, and regular racing. So we've added more games. Part of the reason I wanted to show you this is not because I really want to talk about ancient Greece right now, because we'll talk about ancient Greece later. What I wanted to show you this for is that timelines can be something more than just a line with dots. Okay? They can be a walkthrough, a better visual idea of how something involved, right? To tell you more about something. But it gives you a picture of the distance between events. It tells you how long, or the distance between when one event happened and the next event happened. Is there anything that anybody's seen so far that's negative about this particular timeline? Anything that they see that's negative about this particular timeline? That's negative about this one.
Oh, it's pretty much like spaced between 680
Everything's pretty kind of close together, right? It's kind of uniformly close together. So you've got like this distance of just less than 100 years, and then it jumps from 600 BCE all the way to 393 AD or CE, right? So you have another huge jump. It's not very evenly, it's not spaced to match the time, right? Now that's probably one of those things that they couldn't do in this program, and that's understandable. Sometimes you have to make concessions. Is there anything else that may not be the best?
Well, this isn't really about the timeline itself, but when they made it, when you go to the next thing, you have to click on it and it will.
Okay, so there's some clickable problems, there's some technical problems, but anything else with the actual timeline?
I was confused on the 393, like if it was BC or C.
Right. It's not labeled, right? The next set, the first two are labeled BCE, but the next ones are not labeled. In order to keep it clearer, you want to make sure that they are all labeled, all right? So when you are making your timelines, you want to make sure that you keep them all labeled to make sure that it's easy to understand, for someone to just pick up and understand. Okay? Any other questions? Any other questions about this? All right. I'm going to really quickly. Oh, we got about 15 minutes. You guys got lots of time. I'm going to pass out your homework to you. I'm going to pass it out. Leave it face down. I want to go over the instructions before you start working on it. Last time, I had people, when I passed it out, they just started working on it immediately. And as soon as they did that, they then came up to me because they weren't paying attention to the directions I was giving them. And so they kept coming up to me afterwards asking different questions. And I had to tell them to figure it out all on their own because they weren't listening. So, don't do that. Really quickly, while I am passing this out, an interesting fact about the Olympics. Does anybody know where the term marathon came from?
The Olympics.
Not necessarily, not at all.
Ram.
No, not a guy named Marathon.
A girl named Marathon.
Nope, not a girl named Marathon either. Anybody actually know and not just yelling out random things?
Not really. Can I just take a guess?
In ancient Greece, there was once a city called Marathon. And there was an invading army. They were coming in to take over Greece. And as this army was invading, there were reinforcements in a town called Marathon. And they sent out a runner to go run to tell the reinforcements that they needed help to come defeat this invading army. So the guy ran all the way to Marathon, all by himself, told the army what was going on, and then ran all the way back.
Wow.
Anybody want to guess how long that distance was? Might say 0.2. 0.2.
Yeah, see.
The distance that we now run when we run a marathon, 26.2 miles. So it's named after the run that this guy made in order to help save his life. Okay, everybody turn your papers over. These are the directions. Once again, remember, we looked at this yesterday, and I told you that this is not any actual event. So if you ask me when we actually invented the vaporizing gun, I will tell you that the CIA won't tell me. This is a totally made-up event. I think it appeared on Ancient Aliens. I'm not sure. These are the directions. At the top it says directions for part 1. Follow the directions for each step carefully. For part 2, be sure to answer all parts of each question. You'll notice that all parts. Part 1, label the two sides B, C, E, and CE. So you have two sides of your timeline. You got to label them properly, B, C, E, and CE. Then you need to place the letters of the following events on the timeline. So place them where they go. Then you need to answer all of the questions on the bottom. So why are there two ones on this timeline? We just talked about that today. Number 2, how many years passed between inventing the vaporizing gun and using it on the Roman army? So you're going to have to do a little bit of math. Apparently. Archimedes probably didn't know the CIA was They've invented a time machine too. Which event/date is the earliest on this timeline? And then finally, which one is the most recent? Okay, so you need to answer all those questions. If you need to use the back at all to write out one of your answers, you can, but you should have more than enough space. You guys have the last 11 minutes to work on this. Turn it in tomorrow, don't turn it in today. Huh? No. It's not a group assignment, it is a work on it.
I don't think so. That all depends on who you ask. If you talk to the ancient aliens, they'll say yes. They'll say yes, we just called them by different things. Norse gods. Yeah.
For which one? It was in as a 0 or was it blank? Okay, I'll just double check. It should just be blank. Unless. Okay, then I'll have to go back and double check. Yeah, it's just like that. No, it's not. I don't have an Apple TV. Oh, wait. Bro.
Mr. Bender, wrong person.
There you go, bro. Sorry.
I was thinking of
That I'm getting an Apple TV? No. I don't believe in Apple.
Like, no.
I don't believe in Apple. It goes against my religion.
I don't know if
You guys are chop.
I'm not a
Where the heck is TV? But you have to.
Tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. Tomorrow we are going to be we're going to start a project going back talking about archaeology. We're going to start a project on archaeology tomorrow. So we're going to step away from timelines just a little bit. But we're never really going to fully leave timelines because we're always going to be talking about them because they are going to show up in every single chapter that we do. So do not forget the wonderful things you learned on timelines. I know I told you that we would have a quiz over our key terms. And we were originally planning on doing, I was originally planning on doing that today, but then I found out about our timeline issue and we needed to get that corrected. So we will still have a quiz on our key terms probably on Friday. So we'll talk about key terms again tomorrow a little bit. And then we will have a quiz on that on Friday. So we'll cover our key terms for Unit 1. All right? And then we'll start our project tomorrow. Also, we'll have some time to work on it. So, all right. Any questions on what we're doing in the future? Anybody want to hear any more of our events on our Olympic timeline? No. Good. Sounds good. That's all right.
No.
Here we go. All right. Yeah.
More than 1,000 years after the first Olympiad, Emperor Theodosius I ordered the end of the Olympic Games. Remember, the games were held to honor the ancient Greek gods. Theodosius didn't agree with this practice, and this was the beginning of the end for the ancient Olympics.
So the ancient Olympics actually came to an end at some point in time. However,
April 6, 1896 marked the date of the beginning of the modern Olympic Games, held in the Panathenaic Stadium in Greece. The stadium was built entirely of white marble and held nearly 80,000 spectators. On this date, the very first opening ceremonies were held. Athletes from 14 countries competed in events such as the long jump, cycling, fencing, gymnastics, shooting, swimming, tennis, and weightlifting. Men were the only athletes allowed to compete at this time. This was officially the Games of the First Olympiad.
they do. I think all of them. all those stuff.
They don't do soccer.
Games changed a lot in just 4 years. More than 900 athletes competed in 19 different sports. And this Olympics was open to all male and female athletes who qualified. There were also 13 new sports, including archery and water polo.
And tug of war.
Oh, water polo.
I don't think we have tug of war.
We don't have tug of war anymore.
My friend
But tug of war was an Olympic event. Could you imagine having a gold medal in tug of war? I'm an Olympic champion in what? Tug of war. I'm an Olympic champion in what? Connect Four? I'm a master at Connect Four.
What's that voice for?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know, I did.
Or maybe they should have
In 1968, the Olympics were hosted in a Spanish-speaking country for the first time. The closing ceremonies were shown on television in color for the first time. More than 5,000 athletes from 112 countries competed for the gold.
in tug of war.
They have basketball.
Yeah. They do?
Yeah.
I just watched it. Can we go to 2012?
Yeah, 2012.
This is
In the year
Marley's
2000, the Summer Olympics were held in Sydney, Australia. In addition to the triathlon and taekwondo, trampolining was introduced as an Olympic sport. Women took part in weightlifting and the modern pentathlon for the first time. There were more than 10,000 athletes from 199 countries there. The Olympics has been growing and growing.
Did you guys catch that? Did you guys catch the one interesting thing I thought on there? That women didn't do weightlifting until the 2000 Olympics. Oh, I thought you guys didn't want to hear it. I was like, you guys want to hear more? No! Get out of my room. Whiners.
That's me.
Whiners. Just for everybody who's still here.
In 2012, the Summer Olympics are being held in London. The Olympic torch was lit on May 10, 2012 in Olympia, Greece, where the Olympics began thousands of years ago. The Olympic flame will make an 8-day journey across Greece on its way to the Panathenaic Stadium, where the first modern games were held back in 1896. The flame will be flown to Great Britain, where it will travel more than 8,000 miles, and arrive at the Olympic Stadium on July 27, in time to light up the Olympics opening ceremony. From July 27 to August 12, 2012, the world will be watching the games of the 30th Olympiad. And to think it all started with one short foot race won by a cook.
Jacqueline, I'm gonna tell it. Where are you going? Wire, I'll walk with you.
Hey!
Whoa. What did you fall? We wouldn't have hurt.
Music for you.
It's my theme.
Oh, you're playing it now.